41.
And I'm going to ask, there's a couple that I would like to actually join me at the table because while this bill initially started off as a conversation that I had with, I still refer to as Judge Ritchie, our ombudsman, because I was looking at sexual abuse, and I'm going to move over. No, oh, y'all need to sit together. This started with a conversation that I had with our ombudsman, Judge Ritchie, and she told me that it was a complex issue. While it seemed like it was very simple and easy to fix, being that she had once served as a judge, she said there are multi-layers to it. And so what I decided to do last term was to actually start a study resolution, and this bill began to take on multiple layers because we started off as looking at child sexual abuse and child sexual trauma cases and how they were investigated. One of the things that we learned was how it was always a question as to who was responsible with the investigation. Was it law enforcement? Was it DCFS? So the bill attempts to do several things, and then I'm going to ask our lovely couple from Jefferson Parish to actually speak about their personal experience, which we then added that aspect to the bill. So it started off, and this was added on with the early learning centers, because what we learned that there were certain early learning centers that were unlicensed. And for those of you who serve on health and welfare, you've heard this testimony before, and we did not know that. And we found this out as a result of the situation that happened with this couple here. But what actually brought the bill about was the child abuse and neglecting reporting process and investigation. And so there was concern about the definition of caretaker. There was concerns about the gap that I spoke about in terms of who was responsible for investigating a case when it came in. Was it law enforcement? Was it DCFS? And then what we found was sometimes there was a gap because law enforcement thought that DCFS was doing it, DCFS thought law enforcement was doing it, and oftentimes or sometimes there may have not been a follow-up to those cases. Then it came down to the school employee background checks. Early learning centers, they do criminal background checks. DCFS has a central registry before hiring. And so this bill would require that there would be a check with the DCFS registry for all new school employees and prohibiting new hiring employees if they are on the registry. If they're on the registry, they cannot be hired. And then we learned a lot about the registry in terms of how that registry is set up, and that it's really something that is really disclosed only within DCFS, because they want to make sure that if anything is improperly listed and individuals are asking for an investigation or they appeal it, that the proper process and protocols are followed. And then next it dealt with the child abuse and neglect reporting. Right now, all school employees are required to complete mandatory training and report their completed training to the school. At the state level, we have no idea how many employees have actually completed the training. So this will require that we actually receive that information. And then lastly, there's an accountability factor in terms of damages as it relates to what we found is, and they would attest to this in terms of reimbursement of tuition, things of that sort. They were unable to recuperate. So we have made amendments to the bill, but I will ask, because they have to leave, that we give them an opportunity to share their story, their testimony, in terms of the importance of the bill. I will also say that the secretary, he is here. I have worked with he and his staff for the past 10 months, very intimately, gone back and forward on multiple things, some things that they felt maybe a little overburdensome, but also things that they was already within their wheelhouse to do, and their commitment of doing this job and making sure that they are ensuring the safety of our children. And so with that said, I'm going to now stop, ask them to please share their testimony and then I'll talk about the amendments.
Okay. Please identify yourself and state your name.
Roger Williams.
Jana Padret.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, esteemed members of the committee. Today, our testimony is going to be a little lengthy, but to understand this extensive bill, I think you need to understand our story and how we've been failed at every level across government. I do want to start off and say I'm going to be particularly harsh on the Department of Education, but since working with them, Ms. Townsend has been an absolute pleasure and really part of the solution to getting this going. But my name is Major Roger Williams. I'm an active duty member of the Louisiana Army National Guard. This is my wife beside me, Dr. Jana Padret. She's a nurse anesthesiologist at a large teaching facility in New Orleans. She has her doctorate of nursing practice. Together, we have two amazing little girls that are our absolute world. Today, however, I'm not here as a soldier. I'm here as a father, an anguished father who's been fighting for change for the last 13 months. On behalf of my now 4-year-old daughter, on a day I'll never forget, I picked my daughter up from school and I took her straight to gymnastics. That's our normal Monday routine. When I helped her change into her leotard, I discovered a significant amount of blood in her underwear. Alarmed, I sent a picture to my wife to confirm whether this was normal. Her response was immediate, and it was clear that it was not. When we gently asked our daughter what happened, she told us a boy in her class had hurt her by touching her in the vagina. She also mentioned that an assistant teacher witnessed the incident and told the boy to stop touching her privates. But no further action was taken. Devastated, we immediately sought medical help at Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Sitting there trying to explain to my daughter that she'd done nothing wrong was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. In the weeks that followed, my mental health would be equivalent to, if not worse, than my combat deployment to Iraq.
So I joined them at the hospital, and I kept my brave face for my daughter. I ran around the emergency room waiting for our exam, and I collected tongue depressors, gauze, and tape, and my daughter made this beautiful forky from Toy Story. This is her lovely creation, and she would hold on to this for the next 2 weeks as a comfort toy for her afterwards, okay? So I promised her we were just going to go to the doctor, get them to look at her bobos from school, and then we'd be on our way, okay? So I'm sitting there smiling, keeping my face, but inside I'm screaming because I failed my daughter somehow. I thought I did all the right things. I took forensics class in undergrad nursing at LSU HSC. I even took the forensics class. I did Darkness to Light program, which teaches you how to safeguard your child. I am basically a helicopter parent, and somehow my daughter was failed. So, it's, I don't know if anybody here has had the unfortunate luck to watch your 3-year-old and coach them through a forensic interview and photo of their privates, but it's probably one of the most soul-crushing things you could experience as a parent. So, anyways, a week after that, we went to the Audrey Hepburn Center. That's a child advocacy center. For those that do not know, that is a place that specializes in assessments and interviews of children after they've been abused, whether it's physically or sexually, and they're trained. So the system that failed us, this is why we're here and why we really need this bill passed on. So as a consumer, this is what we've experienced afterwards and why we're here for change today. So after my daughter's assault, we turned to these very systems meant to protect our children, which are our most prized possession in life, right? It's what gives us joy. And anyways, after we found out what happened to her, or found blood in her panties, we immediately contacted the school, and we brought her to the emergency room. We contacted Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, JPSO. JPSO refused to investigate. So they said that this was for DCFS because there was no crime that was committed because the boy was the same age. It was a classmate. So you have 2 3-year-olds. It is child-on-child crime. There is no criminality. There is no bad guy to arrest. So they turned us to DCFS. DCFS stated that it was not a matter that occurred within a home, so it was not for them either. So they turned us back to the school and to JPSO. The school said that they leaned on local law enforcement. The school did nothing. The school did not meet with us for a week. And the caveat is that the school that we send our children to, since we're from New Orleans, is a private school. So if you want, in my opinion, to feel like your child gets a decent education in New Orleans, you turn to a private school. However, there are very, very large gaps there, which is what this bill is here to address right now. So, in the weeks that followed, we were at the Child Advocacy Center a week after. We had called JPSO and requested them to be present, and they did not show up. So we are at a Child Advocacy Center with no law enforcement present. My husband made repeated phone calls and requested to be assigned to an SVU unit. It never occurred. Eventually, they had assigned us to a school resource officer. So they didn't really get involved for about 3 to 4 weeks after my daughter's sexual assault at school. So the reason why that is critical is because I don't know if any of you guys have asked your 3-year-old what they've had for lunch 4 days ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, right? You lose critical components of an investigation during that time that they're falling through the cracks. So, anyways, turning to the school. So the school was notified, and they would not meet with us for a week. They said that they had their own family emergencies, and that they wanted to conduct their own investigation. This investigation was done by 2 school administrators who admitted that they had no experience in this. And the camera footage that they reviewed was on the outside of the school buildings. They don't have any cameras within the building, so you have no idea really what happened. So anyways, after their investigation, they said that my daughter's incident was a serious allegation that they did not find credible. And they asked when she would return to school. They never offered to separate the children. There was never a plan in place on how to safeguard my child. And at that point, I fully lost trust in my children's safety, and I pulled both of my daughters from school. And my father-in-law flew down from New York City and watched my kids and helped us. And my children could not go to school for about 6 months after that until we got them into a new school. So during that time, we had requested tuition to be returned, prorated, anything. So we had paid for the full school year, summer camp, and a deposit for the following school year. They kept all of it. I got nothing back. And then in addition to that, just to collect nat mats and my children's artwork, we had to call JPSO because they would not give it to us. Our property, the school would not give it to us. So, ultimately, when we had requested for the school to notify the boy's family, they refused. They said it would be devastating to his family if it was not real, if it wasn't true. But what about my family, right? What about my daughter? She's 3. She's stuck at home. She can't go to school. She can't see her friends. And I have to keep telling her, thank you for coming to me and telling me the truth, and I appreciate that. But how is a child going to understand that when they're stuck at home and they can't see their friends anymore? So, ultimately, it's heartbreaking to watch your kids fall apart in the weeks that follow and their mental health. But to the next step of how we were failed, we turned to the Department of Education for some answers. So according to their interpretation of Bulletin 137, schools like the one my daughter attended, private school, that if the class contained all children turning 3 by September 30th, they are not required to be licensed. So the reason why this is important is you can have a school that goes from 10 weeks to 10th grade. And in that bulletin, it states that if you service children 2 and under, you shall be licensed. But their interpretation somewhere, they've determined that you can partition parts of this school off, and parts of the school is licensed, and then starting at 3 and 4, they are not required to be licensed. So the reason why this is important and why this is addressed in this bill is at my daughter's school, let's say for the 2s and unders that are regulated and under licensure, they had to meet ratios that are required by the DOE in the state. But if, let's say, they had a teacher call in and they fell out of ratio, they would take an assistant teacher from the 3s or 4s and pull them to the licensed part of school because this part wasn't licensed and wasn't regulated, and then it let the class fall 1 teacher to 15 3-year-olds. They have school policies that cannot be fulfilled because it's physically impossible for 1 teacher to watch 15 3-year-olds. And this is as simple as going to the bathroom. How do you safeguard your child going to a bathroom? You can't. It's physically impossible for all 15 kids to be on the same bathroom schedule. So you have kids that are not being adequately supervised. So anyways, that's just an example of how the DOE's interpretation of Bulletin 137 has failed my daughter. And so it's between ratios, it's bathroom policies, that they have dedicated age bathrooms to not let students run out of class and run back, and that they're supervised. The DOE was not able to cite the school, or wouldn't cite the school. And so when we requested for the school to be held accountable, the DOE told my husband that that they couldn't make him understand the law, and that us requesting them to cite the school or intervene at all would be as though we were asking them to investigate a theft at a grocery store. So how is this acceptable? How can a school that services vulnerable children, right? My daughter was 3 years old. How are they not responsible? Who is responsible for holding all schools accountable for our children's safety? So today, how this has affected us is that just recently, can my daughter attend a full day of school? For the last 6 months, she could only attend 4 hours of school a day. And for all 4 hours, she's had to have an ABA therapy tech sit with her for all of those hours. So let's speak finance, because we're finances. Let's say how that affects a regular family. So for us, for a ABA therapy tech, in addition to private school tuition, it's $50 an hour times 4 hours a day times 5 days a week. That's $1,000 a week that we spend for an ABA tech to sit with my daughter. Times that by 4 weeks, that's $4,000 a month. In addition to that, for a psychiatrist, psychologist, and ABA therapist, that's $150 an hour. How is an average person going to be able to pay that? We are fortunate that, if you want to call it that, I can take a travel contract out of state so I can afford my child's therapy. So ultimately, though, our child's success in life, there is no price to it. My daughter is priceless, and I love her with every part of my body. So that's the reason why this bill is priceless. It really is. As I know there's always a cost associated, but our children, our future, that's priceless. So what about the average family, though? Who can afford that? I did a quick Google search. I don't know the exact statistics, but let's say an average household in Louisiana makes about $60,000. Who can afford that? Do you want your child to get therapy and get better and not have any long-lasting implications from a sexual assault? Or do you pay your bills? That's, it's crazy. And so, anyways, my daughter was failed by this system, and there is a government right now where it has allowed these private schools these loopholes and these gaps. And these schools have since been bought out by corporations, and these corporations put their bottom line ahead of my child's safety. It could be your child's safety, it could be your grandchild's safety for their bottom line. So everyone in this room, you could just as easily be sitting in my seat right now giving this speech, begging for change to safeguard our children at school. So we don't only need your thoughts and prayers, we really need your action today. We need action to pass this bill so we can keep all of our kids safe and for somebody to be held accountable for kids that fall through the cracks like my daughter.
All right, the lasting impact. In our opinion, the situation was entirely avoidable. If the school had followed basic safety practices that are already delineated in Bulletin 137, such as maintaining proper student-to-teacher ratios, ensuring supervision during bathroom breaks, or implementing clear reporting procedures, my daughter's trauma could have been prevented. Right now, currently, there's 254 programs in the state of Louisiana that are not licensed and not regulated. That's almost all of them. A quick math of approximately 15 kids per class, 2 classes per 3- and 4-year-old program. That means there are over 15,000 kids that went to school today that fall outside of any meaningful regulation and any recourse if something like this happens to them. If these students are failed by schools like my daughter, there's no system to hold these schools accountable. It's easy not to believe these kids. It hurts having to believe them. It hurts sitting here in front of all of you today divulging this sensitive subject. Like my daughter being sexually assaulted at school at 3. I paid around $15,000 for my daughter to be sexually assaulted at school. And I'm sure it hurts listening to our testimony. A call for change. I stand before you today not as a father advocating for his child, but as a voice for all families who have been failed by the lack of accountability and oversight in Louisiana's educational and protective systems. In the months following my daughter's assault, I made countless phone calls, desperate to help my daughter. I eventually stumbled across Senator Henry. He personally took my call. Senator Henry was one of the first people to actually care and actually do something. With his assistance, I was directed to give testimony at the Task Force for Child Sexual Assault Investigative Processes, and that's where I was introduced to Senator Barrow. The task force with Senator Barrow and Amanda Trapp has been the shining light in our dark situation. So we really just want something positive to come out of this, and we don't want another dad who brings their daughter to gymnastics to fight like I have and my wife has for the last 13 months. We need your help today for immediate action. The bill before you serves to close the loopholes in Bulletin 137 that allows schools to operate without a license or proper oversight, mandate student-to-teacher ratios, supervision policies, and reporting protocols for all institutions caring for young children in the state of Louisiana, require training for educators and administrators in handling allegations of sexual misconduct regardless of the child's age. It establishes clear, enforceable consequences for schools and agencies that fail to respond adequately to alleged cases of abuse. And lastly, change the definition of caretaker. Currently, if you look at the fiscal note that was provided by DCFS, there's currently 16% of their total call volume that's child on child. That's 16% that nobody's investigating, that nothing's happening. So, this will help at least bring some accountability, have somebody initially look into it, and make sure that it gets to law enforcement, make sure Department of Education investigates. This isn't just about my daughter. It's about ensuring that no other child suffers like she did. It's about creating a system that prioritizes accountability, transparency, and most importantly, safety for all children. It's my understanding that this bill will be held in committee until fiscal aspects are accounted for. I implore you to act with urgency. Louisiana's children deserve better. My daughter deserves better. I ask you, Chairman of the Board, or Chairman of the Committee, I ask that you please hold a vote today to advance this bill. Yes, there's a cost associated, but as you've heard today, the cost of inaction is even greater. Thank you for your time and kind consideration. Thank you for allowing us to share our story once again before you. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide additional information to help guide the important changes we so desperately need for Louisiana's children.
Thank you all. Very, very sad 13 months, and my heart goes out to you. I have grandchildren and had children, older, but it's very unfortunate that we find ourselves in these situations. We have a couple of questions. In an effort to be consistent with the committee, we will put this bill aside, but we will come back to it as we move through the session and look at the fiscal matters before the committee.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, because the secretary is here and he has stated that the department would absorb, so I want to at least have him to give an opportunity to speak before you guys made that decision or motion.
Okay, I don't have a card. If he would get me a card, we can speak. However, we have a couple of questions. As I see it right now, the committee is looking at a fiscal note on it at this time. Senator Jackson.
Thank you. I want to.
I'm sorry. You good? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Senator Jackson.
First, I want to thank you for your advocacy, not only for your child, but for Louisiana children everywhere. You really brought this issue to the forefront, and I think, and I know I was in health and welfare, that we thought, and we saw your video, that we really believed that everyone was being covered. And so I want to truly thank you and issue my sincere apology on our behalf that this, was an issue at all, because it shouldn't have been. I am asking, Mr. Chairman, for the Secretary, because I want to ask some questions about the fiscal information or what we have in the note, and I think he's filling out his cord, because it's my thought, and just respectfully my thought, and it may not be the thought of everyone, that if the Secretary is going to absorb this cost, that would do away with the fiscal note. I know when it first came out, the department, Mr. Secretary, is he coming up? Yes. Originally, when this bill came to our committee, Mr. Secretary, there was a fiscal note on it based on, I think, the number of employees and investigators. I know we looked at that in health and welfare that would be necessary. Is it your testimony now that the note does not reflect your department's absorption of this cost?
I trust the ability of the Legislative Auditor's Office to help assess that. My biggest concern, my name is David Matlock, and greetings and good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, and senators. It may take me, I want to answer your question, and it's a very direct question, and it's a yes or no question. Senator, can you indulge me for just a moment?
Oh, most definitely. Southern University Law Center always taught us to ask direct questions when we wanted something to pass, but of course I will indulge you.
That's kind. So, the department peels onions. A child running in the street at 2 in the morning, a 2-year-old, might be labeled negligence. You pick up that child and you take a look at it. Mom, grandmom, caretaker may be in the home, may be having issues with serious psychotic behavior, maybe serious substance use behavior, maybe many other factors at play. There's no simple case. A truancy case can be an indication, a truancy of a 7-year-old. You peel the onion and you find out what's at the core. Same issues. It can be simple poverty things. It can be parenting skill things. It can be trafficking things. It can be any number of relatively innocent things or relatively problematic things.
Right.
If you have child-on-child behaviors that occur where I don't necessarily want to use the word perpetrator, but the person that might be found at fault or oppressor, I don't want to use magic buzzwords, but if that person is 9 or under, it doesn't fit a delinquent act because that applies to children 10 and up. It doesn't fit a criminal act because that applies, with certain exceptions that this body and others have wisely interpreted or passed. It would be a criminal act if it were an adult. It would be a delinquent act if it was a 10-year-old or up. 9-year-old and under, it is a child of a family in need of services act. There's still a system, FINS. It exists to greater and lesser degrees around the state. I'm kind of proud of the FINS system up in Shreveport and Caddo Parish. That system is supposed to be highly trained, involves law enforcement, involves court personnel, and involves conveners of FINS mandatory conferences. The people who drafted the children's code tried to address that. Well, we see where that got us. And if we peel an onion, I'm not speaking to any specific case, but if you have child-on-child in a school, small child, we don't know what's at the center of that onion. And if nobody else is going to step up to address that, then I want the Department of Children and Family Services to step into the gap. Will that be easy? No. Will it crush an already incredibly overburdened frontline staff who are carrying on their shoulders this entire department? Yes. Do we need more of those folks? Yes. If this bill doesn't pass, we need those folks. If this bill does pass, we need those folks. We need 120. I don't want to get too far out of line. I'm answering a very specific yes or no question. I've been called a filibusterer here lately, so I have to be a little careful, Senator. So I don't know how we're going to do it. I know that we can't do it without our friends and colleagues and partners in the Senate, in the House, in your legislative staffs, with the legislative auditor, with OTS, with you name it, Office of State Buildings, Department of Division of Administration. But if we don't, there's a saying in one of the programs we use. It says, "If not me, who?" And so I guess, Mr. Chairman and Senator Jackson,
Yes.
if not me, who? You tell me who. I'm more concerned, frankly, about the background of agency clearance for the school personnel. It's a little, am I the only one that was a little bit surprised to find out that that wasn't happening the way we might expect it to be? Am I the only one? Maybe everybody else knew it. If I thought a teacher was employed and didn't have, and had a serious valids of some kind with our agency. So yes, that's the biggest problem for me, Chairman, Madam Senator, member. It's not the biggest number, but my thought is I'm going to catch those children someday anyway. I'd rather do it sooner than later. So maybe when we put our amazing fiscal team, and I will put our fiscal team up against anybody, Rebecca Harris, Chris Baum, and their amazing team members. We had a challenge coin prepared. Now, I see all these challenge coins everybody does. I presented one to a colleague. I presented one to an amazing foster parent. I won't go into details. The third one, I said, I want somebody from our Office of Management and Finance to receive this challenge coin, because they stand up, not management and finance, those fiscal people, those budget people, those building people, those car people, those technology people, those systems people. They carry us. They're the skeleton that holds the bones. So I guess my answer is, I don't think that our fiscal note tells the full story,
Okay.
Madam Senator. I think that it's probably pretty accurate as it can be when it comes to that doing agency clearances, the Department of Education, the OTS, our components. I have folks here, Chris Baum, I'm sure is in the audience behind me, because they're always there when I need them, and I'm going to need him if we get into that. But that's a relatively discrete and relatively smaller portion of this. The other parts are very, very hard to determine, and I trust my colleagues. I trust, you mentioned Ms. Trapp. I trust those folks. I trust the legislative auditor. I trust your finance preparation people, and I trust my own team to figure this out or to find a pathway. I'm also honestly hopeful that we will address the bigger problem, which is our budget request. And certainly if that's taken care of, I really feel absolutely no hesitation on this, other than that piece dealing with some of the technology and the literal manual handling of these agency clearances, because right now that has to be done by hand. It's embarrassing, but it's the truth, and it takes a long time to change some of these systems. I wanted Senator Presley, my senator, who I'm so proud to be with, to
You're
hear
proud
that.
of Presley?
What's that?
You're proud of Presley?
I'm sorry. I know that I guess I need to leave.
Interesting.
I am.
No, I'm just joking.
I truly
No.
am. I'm proud to be
No,
representative, and,
so-
and I know he's probably appalled to have one of his constituents in this situation. But yes, I am, Senator. That's a yes or no, and yes
So
to that.
what I'm
most
hearing is,
definitely.
yes, you would like to absorb it, but you may need some money.
I think that's a fair statement. I want the work because what we've got right now I don't think is working right.
You want the work, and you support this committee funding whatever you need.
I absolutely do,
So
Madam
that doesn't
Senator.
do away with the note, but that gets us closer to passing this.
It's a very difficult note to ascertain, because I do think we will catch those cases eventually. And if I have, yes, what you said, ma'am.
So between now and us taking up this piece of legislation, when we figure out the budget, is it possible for you to work with our legislative fiscal office and your department to come up with a note that's reasonable?
I think our note is reasonable. I just think it's so highly unpredictable that I also believe that we're having to triage and ration every day the services that we have. We do not have enough to provide the care for the children that we want to prepare, that we want to provide, that you want us to provide. This is another piece of the puzzle, but this is just as important, I think, as the child wandering in the street, frankly, as the truancy. That's clearly not our
I
bailiwick.
understand now, and just a point of clarification, I don't mean that $6.2 million is unreasonable to protect our children. I just took your testimony to mean that there may be some provisions of the fiscal note that could be tightened up that you could absorb. So let
Maybe.
me state that
It-
you can work with the legislative fiscal office to look at what you can absorb and to take that cost out of the note. And that's what I meant about reasonable. That was the only definition of reasonable I was referring to.
Yes, ma'am. And if I have to, I'm willing to try to eat this, but I'm not willing to try to do that in a sound chamber where I'm not speaking out about the problem.
So your opinion is we pass this bill and you will eat it if it's not funded, or are you going to come back
If not
to
me,
us?
who, Senator?
Yes, I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence in that.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Senator Boudreau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Prior to Senator Barrow becoming pro tem, she and I served together for 8 years on health and welfare. Your agency has been one that has had some difficult times. One of Senator Barrow's initiatives was after a child here in Baton Rouge was killed. And it opened up a lot of eyes. And I bring that up only to say that we can't wait till we lose another child to take action. I want to thank Mom and Dad. Several of us on this committee also serve on health and welfare, and it hurt me to hear you all a second time. I thank y'all. Thank you for telling your story, and while we did look at the financial aspect of this, the video doesn't do what you all do in person. I know that this committee is going to do the right thing. As you all were testifying, I looked at Judge Matlock and Judge Ritchie, and I said, those two people have been in the trenches. Somehow, some way, we got to fix this. I respect the fiscal note because it's not anything new. We've been saying this since Senator Barrow brought to the attention of health and welfare years ago, that we just don't have the resources where we need them, how we need them. Judge Matlock came on board and he saw it firsthand. What I would hope is that, again, it's not a new fiscal note. It's the cost. It's the cost to protect our children. It's the cost for DCFS to do the right thing. And what I would hope is that we can revisit, and to the chair of this committee, it's very important that we are consistent. I know the commitment is not to just put it in a stack and sit there, because the 13 months that you all have endured, we can't make that up. It's done. But what we can do is make sure, moving forward within this session, that we not let the window close before we take some action. And it might be to the judges, it might be that we have to come up with an intermediate plan to just identify, as they went through their trauma and was told, because of this, we don't do it. Because of that, we don't. We got to, first of all, acknowledge that there's a problem, and then we're going to have to send it somewhere. And maybe some way, somehow, we have to scale this back to at least get that part. I think if they would have received that at the onset, that, as you said, Judge Maddox, if not me, then who? Who do we go to? No one can tell them. When we heard it in health and welfare, no one could say. So now, if you all can figure that out, and I believe we got to be consistent with fiscal notes. I don't believe one day they're here and they go away tomorrow. I don't know how you do it. None of my bills, if it starts with one high, it stays high, and I got to work through it. And I'm gonna ask you all to see, how do we do it? How can we identify when, and Lord, forgive the next time this happens, that we can be there for a family and say, we're going to initiate, and by law, this is where we go with that. I know the needs that you have in your agency, and I am very supportive of filling those. 16%, 16 is a large number. We can't be in denial that it's not happening. Now that you've put it out there, we all know. We all know. So when we talking about priorities, and we talk about where we need to be as a state and the things that we're proud of, no, you weren't the only one. I didn't know that we have educators who haven't gone through these steps. No, that's in 2025. In 2025, I failed. 10 years I've been here, and we haven't addressed it. So I want to say, Mom and Dad, it's not going to be left on a stack by my vote. I want to tell you again, thank you for your service to this country, and then for coming back again to tell this committee what you told us in health and welfare, and to prevent another family from having to deal with this trauma. So don't think if we don't vote today, which according to according to the rules that we have laid down for everybody, there will probably not be a vote today. But we are going to expedite as much as we can, because we still got to get it to the House. We still have to get it to the House. So hopefully they will hear and see the sacrifices that you all have made, and we won't put this at the bottom of any stack, that we would elevate it. And again, thank you all. And to Judge Ritchie, I didn't call you up today, but you testified in health and welfare. Her position got started because we didn't have anybody within government to go to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We appreciate your words, Senator. Just, one thing concerning scaling the bill back, remember this is a multifaceted bill. This just didn't fail at one level. This just isn't DCFS. There's licensure issues. There's issues across the board. So I'm concerned about the term scaling some of it back. And before this committee, I know you guys see a lot of bills that deal with funding, but understand with this bill, there's real consequences. A lot of bills that come before you, no one's going to get hurt. Nobody's going to die. But in situations like this, not funding the Department of Child and Family Services to increase, remember that 16%, that's a kid, 16% of total call volume, that nobody is doing nothing, that a kid is in a bad situation and nobody's even checking on them. So I just ask that when you're looking at some of these other fiscal bills and you have to make these tough decisions, understand that these are real kids that are potentially in grave danger, and inaction can lead to, like you said, Senator, another child being gravely hurt, even killed, or being abused even longer.
Yeah, so that's also covered within the bill. I didn't touch on it when I spoke. I kind of forgot. But it's not just our daughter. It's the boy that did this to her as well, because we can all agree here that we want all kids to be safe. So typically the kids who do this to other kids, it is a learned behavior. And if those who don't understand, a learned behavior means that they are either exposed to it at home, so they're watching it being done, they're exposed to pornography, or the ominous, it's being done to them as well. So that would be covered in here, where those children are also kept safe. It's not just my daughter, it would be the kids, we're not angry at a 3-year-old, right? We want to make sure that child was safe, because that child was failed as well. Nobody checked on that family. Nobody checked on that boy. I still couldn't tell you. Nobody wants to talk about it. It hurts to talk about this. It hurts listening to it. So I thank everyone for listening today. I know it is a difficult topic. I know it's some of those things that live rent-free in your mind, and it's hard to go away. But we really do need this, and our kids are priceless. They really are, and I hope that we can get this passed.
Senator Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to echo my colleagues on thanking you for being here. I know how hard it is to talk about personal family tragedies and experiences that are difficult and outside of the norm. I also want to thank Secretary Matlock. Secretary Matlock, if you don't know, served on the juvenile bench in Shreveport for many years, and this, in my eyes, is the perfect spot for him of being Secretary of DCFS, because he cares about our state and the kids in our state, and making sure that we are getting to the right answers. And I want to also echo Senator Boudreaux. just because this is getting moved to a stack today does not mean that it's not going to move forward. Many of us, as we acknowledged in health and welfare, are on that committee and on finance. And we certainly know that this is something that does not need to fall through the cracks. Louisiana needs a system that works for the future of our kids, and like you said, it's making sure that the 3-year-old on both sides of the situation is getting the help and need the help they need in order to move forward. So thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you, Senator Presley. I just want to thank Mr. Williams, your wife. You know, we don't know about this stuff till somebody's willing to tell the story. And I don't think there's anybody on this committee that it doesn't touch their heart. And I think you got the right team together. And definitely with Mr. Matlock here to work with us, Senator Barrow, and I see some of the authors here. Just feel like and know that it's going to be put over, but it's not going to be forgotten. If I could put it in words like that, to be consistent, and it's a process, but it's not forgotten. So, thank you all for coming today, Secretary Matlock. Thank you, Senator Barrow. Would you like to close on your bill? Any other comments?
Well, before I close, there is a set of amendments that I would like to have added to the bill, and this goes to the work we've done to address some of the concerns, some of the costs associated with the bill. So if those amendments could be passed out, well, no, these amendments have already been made. So some of the amendments that we did make to the bill would be not going back retrospectively to having background checks done, which was one of the things that was asked in. We also removed language requiring the Department of Education to post school employees on the state central registry because DCFS had concerns about that information being disclosed. We also removed language amending the definition of neglect because
Okay, do we need to pass those out?
those are amendments that we've adopted, but there's another set
already
of amendments.
adopted?
Yes, and then the
Okay.
last amendment. And so these were our attempt to address some of the concerns because the fiscal note was larger than what it is today. The secretary has said to me, especially with the departments or some of the employees that are listed here, they believe that those employees can do the work. In meeting with OTS on yesterday, they talked about a new program that they can actually implement that can also kind of shade some of the costs that's not reflected here, called the ABOT system. And the last one is dealing with we limited DCFS child responses to sexual abuse in terms of reporting. So those were some of the concessions that we made. I can tell you that I have worked many hours. I see Amanda standing here, so has the department. Yeah. So we have worked many hours trying to make sure that we address the concerns, to look at the gaping hole, especially the Major Rogers and his wife, Dr. Jan, have brought to us. But at the end of the day, there is no price tag. There should not be a price tag on our children. And I know that you guys are going to help me get this across the finish line. I know that we're going to look at this with the eyes and lens that we need to ensure, because they were able to come and tell their story. How many have we not heard? I'm concerned about the 3-year-old boy, because no one seemed to not even tell the parents. We don't know if they know or not. We don't know if they know what actually transpired. We don't know if they are aware that someone else could be abusing that child. We don't even know. And that to me is definitely unacceptable. But there is one amendment dealing with CASA. Dr. Ritchie brought that to us because of the dismantling on the national stage. There is a protocol that they have to adhere to, and so we want to make sure that if that does happen, we do not lose our CASA here. And so we're now moving from the national credentialing to now the state credentialing for CASA, and that's what the amendment does.
Okay, Senator Edmonds.
Thank you. Senator Barrow, we have the CASA amendment, but I believe Amanda would tell us we do not have the other amendment package or number that you were referencing.
That's because it's already been adopted.
Already adopted.
I'm sorry, I was not clear. It's already been adopted. That was a part of the concessions that we made.
It's already been adopted, so
Yes.
we're only dealing with 1268, which
Yes,
is
sir.
a CASA amendment.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we can offer those.
Yeah. We'll offer up Amendment 1268. I see no opposition. It's adopted.
Okay. And so, again, I want to reassure them, because hearing your testimony again, we heard it in committee, it was really hard for me and difficult for me to listen to again. And one of the things that they said to me that has resonated in my heart and my spirit is, I don't want your apology. I want action. And I want to assure them that we are going to render them action. So I just want y'all to know that that will happen. I'm not giving up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Barrett. Thank y'all so much
you for your time.
for your time and your testimony.